They were the first ones to see the enemy, and the first ones the enemy tried to kill. They stood in the open door of a helicopter, no armor, no cover, just a machine gun, a harness, and a thin belief that they might make it back alive. They were called door gunners, and in some wars their life expectancy was measured not in days, but in minutes. This is not the heroic, cinematic version of helicopter warfare. This is the story that veterans whispered, the kind that never made it into recruiting posters. In most armies you're assigned as a door gunner, you don't volunteer. Because by the time the job reaches you, everyone already knows what it means. You are the first one shot at, the most exposed person on board, and the one responsible for keeping everyone else alive long enough to land. A door gunner wasn't a pilot, wasn't an officer. He was the line between survival and ambush. But the gunner didn't have the helicopter's armor. He didn't have the cockpit's bullet-resistant glass. He had a belt-fed machine gun, a metal floor, and whatever courage he could gather before liftoff. The 3-minute life expectancy wasn't an exaggeration. In some regions of Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq, helicopters entering a hot zone were most likely to be hit during the first 3 minutes after coming under fire. And the man most exposed in those 3 minutes was the gunner leaning out the door. Enemy fighters didn't try to bring the whole helicopter down first. They aimed at the gunner, the only one they could see. Take out the gunner, and the helicopter became a helpless bird in the air. Door gunners weren't just targets. They were priority targets. Here's the dark reality: many door gunners were never properly trained for the role. They were infantrymen handed a machine gun and told to keep the enemy off us. No advanced aerial tactics. No specialized survival instruction. No real preparation for firing a weapon from a moving aircraft while being shot at from every direction. Some learned by doing. Others didn't live long enough to learn at all. A Vietnam veteran once said, "My training for being a door gunner was 5 minutes of instructions and a pat on the shoulder. The rest I learned while the bullets were coming up at me." Every door gunner remembers their first mission. Not because of what they did, but because of what they heard. The pilot shouting headings. The radio crackling with warnings. The thumping rotors cutting through hot air. And then, the sound of incoming fire. The pilot yelling, taking fire. The sudden instinct to fire back, even before you can see who's shooting. Your finger is already on the trigger. Your heart is already in your throat. Your mind is already somewhere between adrenaline and terror. That was the moment every door gunner truly became one. Not when they were assigned the role, but when they realized the helicopter wasn't protection. It was a magnet. Most civilians imagine war on the ground. But for door gunners, the battlefield was all around them. Below, ahead, left, right, every angle was a possible hit. The helicopter might be 50 feet in the air, 200 feet, 500 feet. It didn't matter. Small arms fire traveled upward. Rocket fire sought the metal. Machine guns swept the air looking for silhouettes. Every flight was a gamble against geometry, enemy patience, and luck. If the pilot saw the tracer fire first, you had a chance. If the gunner saw it first, you were already late. The gun mounted at the door wasn't just to protect the helicopter. It was the gunner's only shield. Firing wasn't random. It was survival math. Keep the enemy's head down long enough for the pilot to lift away. Kill the ambush before it kills the bird. Drown the ground in noise so the enemy never gets a second shot. Door gunners didn't fire to hit a specific target. They fired to carve a path through chaos. But every round they fired revealed their position even more, glowing tracers cutting lines back to the door where they stood. The hardest part wasn't the gunfight. It was silence. The silence after the landing. After the adrenaline fell, after the ground troops left, after the helicopter lifted back into the air, and there was nothing left to do but think. Every door gunner lived with the knowledge that if the helicopter went down, they were the last ones out. Because they were farthest from the exit. Because they were still strapped in. Because they didn't stop firing until everyone else escaped. They didn't just face death. They had to hold it back for everyone else. Some soldiers saw door gunners as fearless. Door gunners knew the truth. You don't fear death when your job is to stand between it and someone else. There was a moment in every gunner's life, even those who survived, where the sky went red, the engine screamed, and the world flipped sideways inside the helicopter. A moment where the machine wasn't invincible. Where the enemy found the angle. Where the gun jammed or the rotor took a round. Where the chopper lurched and gravity took control. Some survived the crash. Some didn't. Some were rescued. Some were never found. But every door gunner knew. You will not be remembered for your name, only for how long you held the door. And many held it until the very last second of their lives. Door gunners were not just soldiers. They were shields, breathing, bleeding shields placed between a helicopter and the ground waiting to kill it. They knew the risks, they knew the odds, and they climbed aboard anyway, because if they didn't, someone else would have to. And maybe that someone wouldn't come home. When a helicopter was going down, there was no cinematic music, no hero pose, no last words. There was only instinct. The pilot fought the controls. The crew chief shouted orders. The men inside braced for impact. And the door gunner? He was still firing. Because the enemy didn't stop shooting when the helicopter was hit. They increased fire, trying to finish the kill. And if the gunner stopped returning fire, everyone inside became silent targets falling from the sky. So the door gunner kept firing until either the helicopter landed, the ammunition ran out, or the gunner himself was hit. That's the part they never put in the documentaries. Many door gunners died still holding the trigger. If the bird hit the ground hard, the pilot and co-pilot usually had the best chance to get out. The crew chief and passengers had a chance if they weren't pinned or unconscious. But the gunner? He had to unclip the harness, drop the weapon, turn into the cabin, fight his way past wounded men, reach the exit, escape fire, fuel, and collapsing metal. All in seconds, while the enemy closed in. Not every gunner made it the first time. Almost no one could do it twice. If the helicopter survived and returned to base, the outside world thought the mission was done. But inside the gunner's mind, it was still happening. The ringing in the ears, the smell of burning oil, the vision of the tracer rounds arcing up toward him. Gunners developed a strange silence afterward. Some stared at the ground. Some tried to crack jokes. Some just cleaned the gun again and again, hands shaking without realizing it. The gun became therapy. Because if the weapon was clean, then everything was ready. And if everything was ready, then maybe they had control again. That illusion was the only thing keeping some of them alive. Door gunners weren't just fighting outside the helicopter, they were fighting inside themselves. Because after enough missions, one realization always came. I didn't survive because I was good. I survived because someone else died first. The guilt wasn't spoken. It lived in silence, in nightmares, in the way their hands never fully stopped looking for a gun grip. Some gunners later confessed that the hardest thing wasn't killing. It was coming home and pretending it never happened. Every door gunner had a turning point. The first time they saw someone else take the round meant for them. It might have been another helicopter, another crew, another gunner. But once they saw it, saw the side of a helicopter peel open, saw a man collapse under the same weapon they held, something broke inside. Because suddenly they understood a truth deeper than fear. I'm not special. I'm just next. Some became fearless. Some became reckless. Some shut down emotionally, not because they were brave but because feeling anything made the job impossible. Hollywood made pilots into aces. Ground troops became heroes. Snipers got books and movies. Door gunners got forgotten. No medals for standing in the doorway of death. No memorials dedicated to men who never sat still long enough to be photographed. No history books calling them strategic game changers. But talk to anyone who flew, and they'll tell you, the gunner was the reason they lived. Door gunners weren't chosen for being fearless. They were chosen for being necessary. They didn't control the mission. They didn't choose the landing zone. They didn't decide the risk. They stood in the doorway because someone had to. Because helicopters are loud, slow, exposed, and death waits for silence. So they became the noise, the fire, the wall of bullets between the earth and the men inside the bird. Their job wasn't heroism. It was sacrifice, in real time. A pilot once told this story after the war. We were hit on approach. I couldn't pull up. We were going down fast. Everyone was yelling except the gunner. He wasn't yelling. He was firing, straight into the treeline, full belt, no hesitation. We crashed. Men were bleeding, fuel was leaking, rotor still spinning. I looked for him. He was slumped forward, still holding the trigger. He must have been hit halfway down. He didn't stop firing because he never knew he was dead. That is what a door gunner is. Not a soldier with a weapon, but a weapon with a heartbeat. Why their story matters. Because history loves victories. It loves strategy, generals, big moments. But war is not won by generals. It is held together by men who die before anyone remembers their names. Door gunners don't get parades. They don't get speeches. They don't get monuments. They get 3 minutes. And in those 3 minutes, they save more lives than most soldiers do in their entire service. When you see footage of helicopters flying low over a battlefield, remember this. There is someone standing in that open door. Not protected. Not hidden. Not promised a tomorrow. Someone holding a gun, holding a line, holding death back just long enough for strangers to live. That is the dark truth about door gunners. They weren't just soldiers. They were seconds, bought with lives so others could walk away.